Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and today I'm back with another Sunday Sew Along. Today we're doing part 3 of the Itch to Stitch Upland Trousers and I am covering the welt pockets on the back. So that's all we're doing today. We're doing the welt pockets. They're pretty involved, but they're a lot of fun to make and they're really not that bad. There's a little button loop that goes on the back where you can put a little button, which I do for this pair, but I've also made pairs where I've omitted those. So you know, you can kind of do what you will there with that. But yeah, I did go ahead and include them if you would like to do that with your own pair. Okay, as always, if you enjoy this type of material and would like to help support the channel, I do have a Ko-fi account, link down below. It's like a virtual tip jar, and all the money I gain from that goes right back into the channel, equipment, supplies, all that kind of stuff, mainly for the sew-alongs and the tutorials that are just a little bit more cost heavy. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. If you have any questions, leave them down below and I'll answer those as soon as possible. All right, I hope you enjoy this part. Bye. All right, guys, we're doing the back pockets, the welt pockets. This is going to be a standalone video, just the pockets, so it'll be easy for people to go back and look. Because this type of pocket, I mean, honestly, you could use these pattern pieces for any back pocket if you wanted to replace a patch pocket on a pattern. Or a pattern that has no pocket, whatever. It's upside down. You can, yeah, kind of just stick a welt pocket wherever you want. And they're just a very traditional, and they're really fun to sew. Okay, so what we're going to need for this week are our backs, our pant backs. And, I mean, I will be, gosh darn it, sorry, I keep getting that cord in the way. All right, we need our back pocket facings. We have 2 of them here, and I've gone ahead and serged the top and bottom. The instructions have you just zigzagging these onto the back pieces, but I like to go ahead and serge them, and then I just stitch them on with a straight stitch, so it's up to you, but I've already gone ahead and serged those edges of the back pocket facings. You're going to need your 4 strips for your welt, as well as 2 extra strips of interfacing. You're going to need your back pocket piece, which is this really long, skinny piece. And you're going to need your back pocket loop piece. There should just be one of those. So that's everything we're going to need. We're going to start off, I think this is steps 22 through 29, or what we're going to do first, which is kind of prepping everything. And then, yeah, we'll just go step by step. But we're putting in the welt pockets in the back today. Okay. Let's start with prepping these pieces first. Okay, so we're going to take our back pocket piece, and I do want this to be on the outside of the fabric. So when I am wearing these, like when I'm pulling them on, this is what you see inside the pants. So I want this to be on the outside of the pocket. Which I think is going to make that the wrong side. So it's a little bit counterintuitive. Is that right? No, or maybe she counts that as the right. Gosh, I'm going to have to look. Hold on. Let me look at the instructions. Okay, I just want to make sure my verbiage matched up with what she's saying. So she does want you to have the right side of the fabric on the inside of the pocket, but I'm going to do it opposite. So this is going to be my right side of fabric, and this is going to be my wrong side of fabric for the instructions. Okay, so on our right side, we're going to put our pocket facing here, wrong side of it to the right side of the pocket piece. And we've got notches that we're going to be matching up. Right there. That's upside down. It kind of has a little bit of a shape to it because as you can see, this piece kind of shapes. All right, so we're just going to match our notches, which are right there and right there. All right, and I am just going to sew these in place with my 2.5 millimeter stitch length. so there's one. Now we're going to do the other one. Again, match my notches. Okay, so again, wrong side of the facing to the right side of the pocket. I'm making this the right side and this the wrong side. All right, now we're going to do a little bit more prep. I'm setting aside my 2 strips of interfacing for now. We don't need those quite yet. Get rid of that. But what I'm going to do now is I am going to take, this is the button loop piece, and I am going to take it over to iron it. And I'm going to press in each side to the center. Sometimes it's good to press the center line and then press. So press each side to the center and then press those together to make my little buttonhole strip. So I'm going to go press those like that. So again, in, and then fold it in half. That's the button loop piece. And then for my 4 welts, I'm just going to press those in half. I'm going to take those over and press them in half. So I'm going to go do that real quick and meet you right back here. Okay, so I've got my 4 welt pieces folded in half and pressed. We're going to set those to the side for right now. And then I have my little button loop piece pressed in and then pressed again. And I'm just going to do an edge stitch right along the edge, oddly enough. So this little button loop piece can be a little fiddly, but it does make a really nice detail when all is said and done. So I added this to my first pair that were in the apricot colored cotton twill, but I did not add these to my, I left my corduroy pair without a button or anything on that back pocket. I just did the welts because it was just such a thick fabric. I mean, this is thick too, but you have to do so much pressing, and pressing with corduroy doesn't always look great, so I omitted those. But what I'm doing, so I've edge stitched, sorry, I'm just talking and doing. I've edge stitched this all nice and neat. Now I'm going to fold it in half and then cut it in half because we've got 2 belt loops here. Like so. Now what we are going to do, I'll do one of these on camera and one off, is we are going to make a buttonhole loop. So we are just turning this, and I'm putting the edge stitched seam on the inside, but you can do what you want on this. And we want to, this is going to get caught into the seam at a 1/4 of an inch seam. So I'm just going to hand baste these 2 edges together. Let me get I should have had my needle prepped here. I did not. And I'm going to use red, just so it's easy for me to unpick it later, to get it out of there. I'm just going to double it up. We're going to be whip stitching this welt pocket closed once it's all sewn. So I'm going to leave this thread and needle out over here to the side. So you won't need to put that away yet. Okay. All right, so we're going to, again, this is my edge stitched edge, and I'm just making it bend to my will, matching up my cut edges so that it looks like so. And then I'm just going to maybe kind of whip stitch those together. This, I promise, is going to help so much because it could be, I mean, I know basting can feel fiddly, but this would be so incredibly fiddly if you didn't baste it shut. Because we're only working with 1/4 of an inch seam allowances with this pocket. Okay, I think I'm going to baste, do one more. This doesn't have to be pretty. Just needs to keep things shut. Okay, just do a quick tie off just to keep it nice and sturdy. All right. All right, and I will do the other one off camera so you don't have to watch me do this twice. Okay, so once you've done that, we are going to baste this to you're going to grab 2 of your little welt strips here and baste it. And I'm actually going to mark the middle of this welt strip, just finger pressing. Okay, and we're just going to set this over it like so. And now we're going to baste it in place with the machine at at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so now that is stitched on like that, and we'll wait and pull these basting stitches back out as soon as the welt is in, so you don't need to worry about that right now. Okay, so I guess, yeah, so I'm going to do this with the other side. Sorry, I'm looking over at the instructions. I don't want to, I'm trying to go in order so that it's not too confusing if you're also following around with the instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for the other side. And then when we come back, actually no, we're going to do one more thing before I leave you. Okay, so you're going to do that with 2 of the strips. And then with the other 2 strips, you're going to sew them down here at the bottom of your pocket bag. So at the top of the pocket bags here where it has a little bit, and at the bottom of the pocket bag, you're going to line your cut edges up here at the bottom, and you are going to sew those to the bottom of this pocket bag at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, which will get sewn that same seam allowance a few times. Okay, so there we have it. I feel like that's, oh well, it'll be fine. Okay, so we're going to do that on both. Okay, so make your buttonholes, attach to 2 of the welts, attach your buttonhole, and the other 2 we're going to sew to the bottom of the pocket bag on the right side. Again, I've switched my right and wrong sides, so this is the right side. And I will meet you back here to do our darts and to prep the back for the welts. All right, so now we are going to put our welt pockets in. This is what they're going to end up looking like. This is part of the curve of the butt, so it doesn't lie flat when it is flat. And then there is the back. And we've got it, it's not completely basted at the top because of, I guess we could do that now, but the way things get finished. Okay, so that is where we're headed. So let's get going. Okay, so first we need to, I still have my back piece here because we're going to need it in just a second to mark our pocket placement. But I'm going to set it on the floor here for a minute. What we're going to do first is sew that dart. So we need to do that before we can do anything else. So I've marked my dart. You can sew those in however you would like. I eyeball mine most of the time, not all the time. Sometimes I'll pull my top thread down really far and then pull it taut to kind of create the leg of the dart. I do that a lot on like my lighter weight things, like when I want a really precise point on the end of that dart, like silks and stuff like that, ones that can get pointy easily. All right, so I'm going to start up here. So there we have our dart. So I'm going to go to the ironing board and I'm going to press the dart bulk towards center back, which on this piece is to the left, over a ham, real quick. And then I'll meet you back here and I'll show you how I mark my pocket pieces from there. Okay, so I'm going to try and get this to where you can see this best as possible. So this is the wrong side up, obviously, and I've got my dart sewn and pressed. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece here. Now, obviously, I should have done this on the other side to make it easier for you to see. But can you see I've got the corners of my darts, or my the boxes, like already poked through because I've already done the other side. So that is important. You just need to know where those 4 corners are, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up here at the side, the top and the side, okay? Now, it's not going to match up. Like, look how badly it's jogging because of that dart. That's fine. You just want to match up this top corner. And I'm going to stick my pins right at those corners. And I'm actually using a real pin for this. Again, I'm on the wrong side. So, obviously, if you're making white or something, you would maybe want to use chalk. But I'm just going to be making a little dot, basically. So right where those pins are poking into my fabric, I'm going to make a little dot. And the reason I'm using an actual pin here is because I don't want it to go away when I put my interfacing down. Okay, all right. So I've marked those 2. Now, I'm going to go over here to the other side and match up this side. So I'm matching up that corner. So again, this is going to be all wonky, and that's fine because the dart's been sewn. So I'm just going to match up that side and just that top there in the corner and put my pins back through the other side. Okay, lift that up and mark that with a pen. All right, and there we have those marked. Okay, so you can see I've got my 4 dots. They are 1/2 inch apart and 6 1/4 inch long. Is that right? No, 6 inches long. Let me measure. Yeah. No, 6 1/2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/2. 5 1/2 inches long, 1/2 inch wide. Okay. So now I need my interfacing, which is right here. So now I'm going to take my interfacing and I'm going to place it on top of those dots. And I can still see through my interfacing enough to see the dots. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark through to the top of the interfacing. Now, I'm just going to say this. You don't have to be uber precise. I mean, you will with the sewing, you need to be more precise, but we'll measure this out. We just want in general for the pockets to be in the same spot and in a pleasing spot. So mark your marks if they're off a little bit, because my other pocket was a little bit. I straightened it all out with the ruler, so it was fine. Okay, now I'm going to go and press this down, fuse it real quick, and then I'll be right back to do some more marking. Okay, now we're going to mark with our removable pen. So now I've got my friction pen. So I'm just going to line up my 2 bottom dots. And I'm going to make a line past everything, okay? Because we want to be able to see things. Now I'm going to measure 1/2 inch from those dots, and that's generally, but like I'm a little past this dot because it's not going to be perfect, but this will be 1/2 inch. So we're using the dots as general guides, basically, okay? And now we're going to come down here. An 18-inch quilter's ruler is just indispensable, in my opinion. Okay, make sure everything's lined up, and then we're going to do long like that. And long that way. And you can measure to make sure you're right the size you want. All of that. We're 1/2 inch apart. Okay. Now, with the wrong side up, we're going to go to a basting stitch. This is basically what you would do in a couture setting, except you would be hand basting all of this. But we're not going to. We're just going to do a machine baste and call it good. Okay. Everything's situated here. So I'm just going to be machine based along all 4 of these lines that I just drew. Because then it is also marking it on the right side, which is very helpful. Okay, so now we have traced that, so when we flip this over, we can see our box on the right-hand side. Okay. Now, we're going to take our stitch length down to like a 1.5 to do our welts here. These pieces. And now we're going to need our pocket piece that has our little welt at the bottom, and then also our little welt with our buttonhole. Okay, so we're going to first sew the buttonhole piece on. We want the buttonhole to be right over that dart, just for symmetry, and that should mean that you are overlapping, you're going past your, what would you say, I guess, vertical lines that are here on either end. And you want to line up the middle of that, this welt, kind of with that line. Because basically, what we are doing is we are going to be sewing at 1/4 inch seam allowance, so right in the middle of this welt. So I'm just going to lower my needle right at that intersection of this vertical and horizontal lines. And I'm going to sew right in the middle of this welt. Now, if we are on that basted stitch, great. If we're off a little, it's okay. As long as everything, hitting this little corner right here with both pieces is where it really matters. So then, when we turn this back, we can see that it ends right at that vertical line. I'm probably in the light, but it ends right at that vertical line. And we want it to do that on both ends. And it does. Okay? So now that one is sewn in. Again, raw edge towards the center of the box, and then your little belt loop is face side down, so it's right side down, and that will be up, because then when it all gets sewn, that'll get turned that way. Okay, now we want this one sewn on, so it's also going to be right sides down. Remember, this is the wrong side of my fabric, so this is also right sides down. And now we're going to just match up our cut ends here on either end, but we want to hit that point perfectly again. Eyeballing this. Now you could go and like mark this in again, like with, I don't know, your Friction pin if you wanted to. You could also hand baste this. That's what the instructions have you do. So definitely do that if you feel like you need to. And I'm sewing just to the left of the previous stitch line where we sewed the, like literally right next to it, where we sewed the welt to the pocket. And then we're going to go slow because we want this to hit. And now we're going to look. And that is right where I want it. And that is right where I want it on that end as well. Okay, so that's good. All right, now you're going to cut into your pants. This is where it really, what is it? This is where it hits the road. This is where I can't think of the saying. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm taking my fingers and I'm separating these seam allowances, which mine are pretty bulky, so it's kind of hard. But I only want to cut, I don't want to cut those seam allowances. I only want to cut through my pants. So I'm just sticking my finger between those to kind of push them out of the way. And then I'm going to, I'll start back here. We're going to cut into the pants and pretty much in the middle-ish. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just going to cut along my merry way through the center of the box. And about 1/2 inch away, I'll stop and cut to, but not through, that stitching. Same on the other side, because I'm trying to only cut through the pant fabric, not any of the seam allowances of the welt. Then we'll come over here to this side, do the same thing. Welts are so satisfying. I know it can be scary to cut into your, like the back of your pants, but it's such a satisfying thing when you get it. Oh, right. So you're cutting like little Y's in there at the end. Okay. So now we can take our pocket, shove it through our pants. Push everything through. Just kind of push everything to the back. All right, so you can kind of see it coming together a little bit. It always looks horrible when you first flip it through because you haven't hit anything with steam or anything like that yet. So now I'm going to take this to the ironing board and give it a really good press from both the front and the back. I'm going to get everything nice and pressed flat. Get that pressed down, get everything nicely pressed. Like so. And then go ahead and probably even before you press, get that nice. You want to, what is that? Hold on, I've got an errant something there. Oh, it's just a piece of thread. Okay. you want to go ahead and pull out your basting stitches. Mine kind of left marks on my other one, but I mean, they eventually pressed away, but it'd be better to remove those now. So go ahead and remove your basting stitches. Give your pocket a good press, just on the front and back, flat, and then I will meet you right back here. We're going to sew on our button and then get everything ready to finish off the inside of the pocket. Okay, everything's been pressed. My basting stitches have been pulled out. I'm going to sew my button on real quick, because we are going to baste this closed when all is said and done. So I'm just going to hand sew my button on real quick. I guess you could do this at the machine if you wanted. But I want my button to basically sit right at the seam. I found that was a good spot for the other side. So well, that's what I'm going to do. I have threaded, threaded my needle with 4 strands. So I have done a double strand twice. It just means you have to, go less times through the button and it's still secure. And I'm just using little, these are my little, I think they're an 18L size, which I believe is like a 3/8 inch. Is that right? I always have to look that up when you have, it's like a shirt size button. I use these for quite a few of my shirts and projects, and I buy them by the gross from Wawak, so I get 144 at a pop. Which sounds like a lot, but when you're making a shirt, you use like 10 to 12. So that's really only like 12 shirts. Which is kind of a lot of shirts, I guess. But I sew for the rest of my family as well. Okay, come on. There we go. Okay, now we're going to go the other way. This is very thick. I never really took to using a thimble. I feel like I should try and learn the correct way to use a thimble, because there is a correct way to use it. I have a friend of mine that was taught by an actual tailor, like an old school tailor. And he tied her fingers together so that she would use the thimble correctly, just to learn muscle memory. Anyway, she told me she will show me that, and she has shown me, generally. I should have her, next time we're sewing together, actually teach me how to do that. It's probably a skill I feel like I should know. I am having the worst time with my thread here. There we go. Okay. One more time. And tie it off. Kind of a nest back there, but that's okay. I don't even use these pockets. I mean, does anyone really? All right. So now I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I'm not going to button this yet, because we'll baste this welt shut, and then I'll button it. It's just kind of a pain to button. All right, so from the back, we have this mess here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the pocket and take it all the way up here to the top and kind of get everything aligned correctly. Everything should be lying nice and flat. I'm not going to press anything yet, though. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to baste this top part up to the top of the pants, but only like this section. I'm going to leave about 1 inch to 1.5 inches on either side so that we can finish things off with the serger and sew the rest of the pocket together. So we just need it to, oh, I need to take your stitch length back to a 2.5. I just need just a little bit to keep that up. Okay, so now we can go and give this a good press flat, and then I'll meet you back here and we're going to sew up the sides of our pocket and finish those off with a serger. Okay, now we're going to close up our pocket. We're almost finished. Yay. Okay, so this is what everything looks like right now. We're going to sew the sides of our pocket together now. So I'm going to turn this over right side up. Need to hit this a little bit better with the iron, but I will in a minute once I've basted things. Okay, so right side up, I'm going to lift up the side here, and I should have, you know, my pocket here, and then that little triangle that we cut out. Everything should be lying nice and flat. And I'm going to sew that seam, but you really only need to go just right, you know, past this area because this is just a single layer here. So we're going to sew 1/2 inch-ish. Oh, for heaven's sake. And then when we get up here, we're going to sew as close as possible to that, just to get that triangle really nice and tacked down as close as possible to that edge. And then you can stop just kind of at that facing edge. So that's one side. We're going to turn it over. Do the other side. Sticking to the interfacing. All right, and now I'm just going to go serge, but I'm going to serge from the top all the way down. So just finish off your seams however you want on both sides. I leave a long tail here at the end and then thread it back through with a darning needle just to keep everything nice and neat there at the bottom of the pocket. So I'm going to go do that, and I will meet you back here for whip stitching the pocket closed. All right, we're almost finished. Okay, so I am going to hand baste this shut. My button loop's kind of doing something weird. I have a needle with some double strand of thread in red, because that'll make it easy to take it out later. And I'm just going to start here on one of the lips of the pocket. And then I'm just going to do a very long whip stitch, just to keep this all behaving. And at the end of the day, when all's said and done, it will all, you know, it's like setting your hair, like when you put your hair in rollers when you're using natural fibers. So once I have finished basting this, and I'll button the button and all that stuff, you know, you can hit it with steam again really well, and then it like sets it like you would set your hair with rollers. This works especially well with wool. But I really think that any natural fiber, and this is cotton, and these can be, don't have to be small, big whip stitches, something that's easy to pull out later. But I won't pull these out until these pants are finished, so I do the same with the welt pockets, like on jackets and stuff. In fact, I forgot my daughter's blazer that I made. She wore it the first time, and I totally forgot to pull the whip stitches out. And she noticed it at church. I was like, that's embarrassing. I get off onto people that buy, like, especially when I used to do a lot of alterations. The men would always have their vents still basted shut and their pockets still basted shut. I mean, sometimes they would have had these jackets for years. And they're like, I just thought the pocket was for show. Bless them. Okay. So there we go. Everything is basted shut for now. And we can go ahead and put our button through our hole here. Hold on, I feel like I'm gonna knock things over. These pants don't like staying on the... And again, I will never use these pockets. I mean, they're functioning. I like the way they look. I should just do faux ones. Because the button is just such a pain in the rear end to do and undo. And my fabric is thick. If I were using like a brushed cotton, like your, like a Docker weight cotton twill, it may be a little better, but not a ton, I don't think. Okay. All right. Get all of that tucked under there. Sorry, I'm totally out of frame. You manhandle the button. There we go. Oh, and you can pull out your basting stitches that you put in for your little belt loop now too, if you want. If those are visible. And mine are. So you can take those out. I'll do that off camera. I'm going to have to... Oh, no. That came out. There we go. And then we're going to leave these other stitches in for now. But yeah, give it a good blast with steam. And you have a welt pocket. And don't... Again, this is going to fit over a butt. So you do need a little bit of that curve. That's why we have the dart in there. So I would even recommend pressing this over a hamp just to keep that curve set in. And yeah, there we go. We are finished for today. We'll start assembling our pants next week. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you then.